Dr. Christopher Bunt beside me is with Biotactic. He's a fish and wildlife researcher who has some interesting perspectives on fish and wildlife. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, I was reading your paper here, good academic paper from 2011, which means the research was probably a little bit before that because it takes time to publish. But am I correct in summarizing your research in saying that we don't know enough about fish and why they behave the way they do and what sort of a fish way they like and so on? Is that about a decent summary of your research?
Yeah, that's certainly what the results of the meta-analysis that we conducted revealed.
My question is, why is that? Because we've had fishways and dams for 1,000 years or so. We've built a great number of them. And what you're basically saying is we weren't entirely sure what to build or whether it would work, but we kept building it.
Well, the conclusions of the results were primarily based on the limited number of studies that have actually been done with a variety of species and a variety of fishway designs in a variety of different locations. So certain claims that were being made about the efficacy of certain fishways were based on anecdotal information, or they just weren't based on enough scientific study and enough studies that were of fishways that were designed with a monitoring program in place as well, so that these fishway designs could be effectively evaluated and then compared. So with that study, there were even though there was a lot of data, they came from a very limited number of studies across the whole spectrum of different types of fishway designs and species that use those types of fishways.
Well, let me see if I can continue summarizing your scientific research somewhat adequately. You said words to the effect that fish may go up to a passageway, which could be a ladder or, a weir and pool thing, something that encourages fish to get up over and around a dam. So we know they went up there, but we don't know whether they went in. And if they didn't go in, we didn't know whether it was because they didn't like the structure or they didn't like the temperature of the water. Is that about right?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are many complexities when it comes to successful fish passage. The fish initially need to be guided to where the structure is located. Then they need to be able to enter the structure. And then there's certain behavioral and physiological factors that fall into play about whether or not they're going to successfully enter a structure, and then they need to be able to swim successfully from the entrance of the structure downstream from the dam to the top of the structure and the exit. So there are all different factors that go into play: water velocity, turbidity, turbulence, the types of complexity within the fishway itself that reduces water velocities or provides refugia for under certain conditions, depending on the locations within the fishway that fish might be swimming. So fish there's at least three different main variables that we look at when we're trying to evaluate the effectiveness of a fishway, and that's whether they're able to find the fishway itself, whether they're able to enter the fishway, and whether they're able to swim all the way to the top of it. And so we try to assign certain metrics to these different factors, and we measure certain things such as guidance efficiency, attraction efficiency, and passage efficiency, and all of those variables plus several others contribute to whether or not a fishway is going to be considered successful for passing species A, B, C, ideally the entire fish community. That's our objective typically is to, with fish passage research, is to make a dam as porous as possible, or as transparent as possible for both upstream and downstream migrating fish.
Now, there's a bit of a mystery, and I'm on a bit of a detective story exploration here, and it is about sturgeon. Apparently, sturgeon are almost extinct in Europe, and I guess it's a combination of the things you talk about, overfishing and no passageways and what have you. The caviar in Russia, I was shocked to find when I went there that black caviar is illegal, and I guess it's because of the diminution of the sturgeon population. Same thing in North America. I can't find anybody who knows what kind of a rapids or fishway sturgeon can get up. Do you know?
No. That we know that they have a great deal of difficulty being passed through any of the fish ladders that really have been studied. The again, there haven't been. This is the whole thing. I mean, there haven't been nature-like fishways studied in areas where sturgeon could be able to use them. So it's not to say that that there aren't fishway designs that could effectively accommodate sturgeon. It's, again, it comes back to the fact that there hasn't been enough work. There haven't been enough monitoring studies across different fishway designs and across the taxonomic range. But typically, sturgeon are among one of the most difficult species to pass through a fishway, as are walleye.
But now a sturgeon can pass through an open river if that's the sturgeon's natural habitat, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Absolutely,
And
they can pass up through rapids.
all right, Christopher Bunt, and I will refer to you as Dr. Christopher Bunt. There are people who disagree with you. There are people who have published after 2011 who say, well, wait a minute, we know whether fish use a passageway. We've got RFID tags, we have remote sensing, we have all kinds of gizmos to determine this. I'm sure you've kept up on the literature. What's new?
Yeah, well, it's still, I mean, it comes back to the same conclusions as before. There still haven't been enough studies to confidently say that we can pass any species of fish over any dam of any size anywhere in the world.
To what do you attribute the lack of study?
It's been the lack of time. These studies they take a long time. The gizmos that we use are expensive to do the work effectively. What people are focusing most on when it comes to restoration of fish passage, rather than building new fishways, it's removing dams. And that really is the ultimate fish passage restoration tool. And it's gaining momentum more and more. And in terms of fish passage objectives, fish passage opportunities, I really believe that's the way to go. There are the vast majority of dams that are blocking fish movement are unnecessary. They're historic dams. The cost of removing the dam is typically much less than maintaining the dam. And it's a lot of the dams that exist worldwide, especially in North America, are just historic dams, and people are just comfortable with them in place. And again, you know, people don't like change, but when it happens, they adapt quickly, and the fish adapt even quicker.
Wow.